Today at shopdap.com, we're going to test how well E85 Fuel works in our MK8 GTI. E85 Fuel can get you big performance gains if your car is tuned for it. The issue is that spotty E85 availability depending on your area and varying ethanol content can pose a risk to your engine. When your car is tuned for E85, the limits can be pushed. This is because E85 functions closer to race fuel in its resistance to detonation or knock. The problems come if you can't fill up with E85 or if the ethanol content drops below 85%. If you can't find E85, you'd be forced to retune your car to a different file that would allow you to run different octane of fuel. If you're forced to emergency flash your car in a gas station and you don't have a battery charger like this one, and the battery voltage dips too low, it can brick your ECM, which is why we put battery chargers on there while we flash cars. Because I don't want to mess with any of that stuff, flex tunes are my preferred method for E85 tuning. A flex tune adds an ethanol content sensor which feeds directly into the ECU of the car. Then once a flex tune is added to your ECU, the car can automatically switch between standard fuel and E85 without having to make any changes of any kind. So if I can't find any E85 fuel in my area, I can drive around on standard 93 octane fuel until I find the E85 that I'm looking for. To make this flex tune work, you first have to install a flex sensor and this fancy module right here, which means you don't have to wire anything into the ECM of the car. We're going to show you how to install that sensor after we do our dyno runs, but for now, we're going to flash Unitronic's beta file onto our car. If you didn't know, you could flash your own car at home with one of Unitronic's cables, which you can buy at our website, shopdap.com, for all your Volkswagen Audi parts needs. Now that our flash is done, the car knows the ethanol content because of the sensor and feeds it into the instrument cluster because Unitronic has a fancy setup. All you have to do is go into your performance meter, select it, and when cruise control is turned off, it will display your ethanol content. When you turn back on, it goes back to your torque reading. Our last dyno run on a Stage 1 Plus non-flex fuel tune with 93 octane fuel had 374 pound-foot of torque and 315 horsepower. Now that our flex tune is on the car, we're gonna dyno it again. As you can see, this car made an additional 15 horsepower and 3 pound-foot of torque more, and the conditions were much worse. I'm not sure if you've ever been to the South in July, but it is mucho caliente, which makes the dyno numbers in the summer much worser. The reason why we got a bump in power is because standard 93 octane fuel has around 10% ethanol content. Our car had around 13%, so the flex tune was able to adjust things like timing and or boost since it's now adjusting to the ethanol content in the car. So switching to a flex tune can give you power benefits even when you don't have E85 fuel in your car. And as we can see, 13% ethanol content and 5 miles to empty. This tank is empty as can be. We're gonna get our E85 in there, check our ethanol content reading, and then dyno it again. Let me get my shoulder workout for the day in. We strapped up on the dyno.
I could be helping right now.
But you're recording me instead. It's for you people at home.
He's shaking.
I mean, you hold a 5-gallon bucket over your head. Fill a 5-gallon bucket with water and hold it over your head. See how easy that is. You f***ers. Now we're going for run 2. Ethanol content now at 69. With 69% ethanol content, we made 407 pound-foot of torque and 367 horsepower at the wheels. If we were able to get the ethanol content in our tank higher like E85, I would expect to see higher power numbers. Unitronic's MK8 GTI numbers are crank rated at 414 pound-foot of torque and 407 horsepower. And a little bird told me that the MK8 Golf R Flex Tune is coming and does require some hardware to make it work, but makes some pretty nice power. Now that you've seen our dyno numbers, you likely think this is a difficult install, but it's not. It's super easy. This is our fuel sensor and we install it in this line right here. This is the module that Unitronic has made to make this easy to install in your car. Normally what you'd have to do is run wires from the sensor all the way across to your ECM. You'd have to then depin the ECM. This prevents all of that because this module goes here. It then runs underneath the cowl to the sound actor and communicates through the CAN bus system to make it possible to send those signals to the ECM through the CAN bus system. Now to start, we're gonna remove this cowl piece, so we can just pop this trim up here, get our rubber gasket off here. We can then pull this up, and we're gonna pop this off the windshield, and we're gonna start at this back edge, and it just sits in a channel that's along the windshield, so we're just pushing this upwards from the back, like that, and kind of walk it down like that. And then you slide it out like so. Next, we're gonna remove this trim piece. This just directs water away from this area so it stays away from electronics. We're gonna take this, pry it like this, out, and then pop it away like that, slide it out, and then rotate it like that. Don't break this, because this is the only thing holding this really in place, and this is what keeps water from funneling inside your car. The plug we're trying to adapt to, I actually can get to with my hands underneath here. It's on the bottom side of this, but you won't be able to see anything. So if you're doing this as a DIY, you can stop here and unplug it from here to get it out. I'm gonna remove the cowl piece on the driver's side so that you can get better visibility, but you do not need to do this. I'm only doing it so you can see. There's a nut, a 13mm nut that holds this on. There is a cap that sits on top of that. All you do is take a pick or a screwdriver and pry this off. Just pull it off like that. Take off your nut. Then this has splines that hold it on. So what I tell you people to do is rock it. So you put one hand on this spring-loaded area, because this is spring-loaded to push up and down, and then you put your other hand behind it. So you're pushing, wiggling with this hand, and pulling it with this hand to get it to release. So you have to kind of continue to push down on this to get it to break free. This side was way harder. This side was pretty easy, but it comes off like this, and then just slides right off. Here's our sound actor here. The connector we're working with is down here. I'm gonna get it from the back side, and what you have is a gray tab. This tab has to be pushed towards the driver's side of the car. I can do that kind of with my finger right there, and then once it's out, I can push it towards the engine bay and kind of get this connector off. And I can try to do it with one hand, like that, and this is our connector. This is the gray tab we're talking about. I was pushing it backwards, and then you push it down like this to release it. Here's our adapter, and this only plugs in one way. So we're just gonna slide it in, click, push that tab in, and then we're gonna feed this down. Now remember, this tab is gonna be upside down, so when you feed it down, you're gonna make sure you flip it around. Click, push the tab in, and we are good. This plug is gonna go right into this module here, and then this other one goes in this side. This is gonna mount somewhere around here, but first, before we get it set in place, I gotta get our fuel sensor actually mounted. Here's our plug to our sensor. Here we have the amount of length that we have available lands this thing right around here for me to be comfortable with the slack it's got. This is an early production version, so there's may vary actually later on when the actual production version of this comes out. So I'm planning to cut this right around here, and I'm gonna put some rags underneath because I expect some fuel to leak out. Be careful. You could fuel yourself all in the face like that. I got fuel in my face. Oh, step fuel line. So we have our squeeze clamps that come with it, and then we're gonna just slide that on our line, take this fitting, stick her in there, and then we're gonna squeeze her down. Now you almost certainly don't have one of these tools, so you can try to use pliers. You could try to use like dikes can work for stuff like this. Just gotta be careful you don't actually cut the clamp. Or you could just use regular old screw clamps that look gross, but will get the job done. So I'm gonna put this end on, and then now you can kind of look exactly how it needs to sit to go on there. So now you get a better picture of like, okay, cut it right there. I don't have to worry about a mess because I've already made a mess. Put our clamp on right here, just like so. Slide this guy on, just like so. Now, something to be aware of, if you feel like you got too much tension on these lines here, you could always try to like shorten this way. This clamp actually is slidable down this hose. So if you wanted to kind of cut this shorter, maybe mount it in place first before you spring anything down. That would have been smarter if I would have done it that way, but I'm not smart. I'm not a smart man. And that would be kind of the safest way to go forward with this to make sure that kind of it's exactly how you want it to be. So I'm just gonna zip tie this right here, And again, I think this may be not the permanent mounting location. It's possible this is where they finalize it. I'm not sure. That is above my pay grade. We have our module mounted here. It's zip tied there. Wires run up and around. Down, we've cleaned them up. We've zip tied them to clean up all the excess, and then all the way down here. Our sensor is mounted here, and our fuel line we're clamped in place, and we have plenty of slack on this wire, so it's not too tight. One thing you want to do before you finish your installation is start your car and run it to make sure you don't have a fuel leak. Do not assume that your crimps are good and everything's great, because your car will catch on fire if you let gas leak out onto the hood. Because I don't want this video to drag out for 700 minutes, we're gonna reinstall this stuff and leave you on your own to do it like a big boy. Pull up your pants if you can't. Pull them up.